First of all, I've just started volunteering here, and I was the staff here, Stephanie, Jamie, Caroline, I can't thank. I learned that there's 33,000 archival items that the library possesses, which is completely staggering. And to go down into these archives, and I'll be telling you a couple of the journals that I read and how poignant they are. Because you just go back in time travel. Quick note, one of the survivors of that explosion was a guy named Charles Jeteau. And Charles Jeteau survived, and he saw it as a sign from God that he could complete his mission, which was to assassinate James Garfield. And that's exactly what he did. I thought you'd like that. Okay, I thought you'd like that. I want to point out that I don't know, I think you're all actually very much into history here in Southport. But really, a lot of times you're surprised how much history is just in your backyard. And sometimes it's so much that you can't believe it. You think you're just emphasizing it because you're at home. But you're not. This is one of the most extraordinary places in the United States, especially in American history. And I encourage you, Mike Brennan leads tours of Southport and Southport Harbor. He's right there. They are done on behalf of the Pequot Library. I've tagged along with him on a couple of them, and they're absolutely staggering. So I encourage you to do that. Also, Mike and I are docents at the Fairfield Museum, and you should talk about one of the greatest concentrations of colonial history in one place, including the witch dunking pond, right? Edwards Pond, which I encourage you to do. So just in your backyard are some just absolutely fabulous things. Oh, by the way, on the steamship, at one point in American history, 50% of steamboats exploded. 50%. Okay, and what they used to do was they would put the third-class passengers closer to the boilers. All right, so if you were a first-class passenger, you stayed away. They put you in the safer spot, but they were highly dangerous devices. So let me give you an overview of what I'll be talking about. I'm going to be going through the journals of the Couch family. They start in 1742. They go to about 1800, and there's many Simons. We're going to be looking at two of them. And what do the Couches record? They do a bit of shipping. They do a lot of farming. And so what's a lot of fun is I'll be taking you through some of their lists of what they sold and they bought. And that'll be really interesting to many of you because it's really an incredible. This was considered by George Washington. Fairfield was considered the Fairfield beef. Mike, remember we were talking? Fairfield beef was considered a prize beef, and there's several instances of this being called the breadbasket of the Revolution. And you're going to see why when I'll introduce you to a lot of the products that they grew and the prices that they were getting, which were fantastic. It was a good time to be a farmer. Of course, it was completely seasonal, and I'm also going to be taking you through the weather of the time period, and also later in the 19th century. And if they knew the term global warming, they would have been using it. So everything's in superlatives. Coldest winter, there's no snow this winter, there's the highest tide, the hail was as big as basketballs, which wasn't invented yet, but I got it. Sorry. But so I'll be going through the weather of the time period too. It was quite turbulent, and these were people who lived off the land and obviously lived off the water. But I'm also going to be showing you the price adjustments calculated for inflation. Believe it or not, there's websites where there's an English one where you can go back to the 13th century, put in money, and it'll do conversion rates. Wow. And just like PBS, if it's English, you got to believe it, right? It's the best. So I think this will really be enlightening to you because they made quite a bit of money when times were good, and actually on average through the good times and the bad times, it was a good life. And so I'll be going through a lot of that. I'm also going to be talking about the Jonathan Bulkley journals. He kept journals from about 1800 to 1860 with a time off in between. I don't know why. Maybe those were laws. So we've got kind of the two ends of his life, including the middle. But one of the fun things about this guy is how melancholy he is. All right, how there's clear signs, I think, of depression. I'll be talking about the loss of his wife. I mean, I'm kind of getting verklempt right here. I'm going to be going through death and disease rates. I'm going to show you what people were dying of. And why. I'll give you one good one. I don't, because there's a lot more, so I don't want to. I'm not spoiling everything. One guy died by gravel. Okay. Suicides were frequent. Opium addiction was frequent. Mental illness was frequent. Okay. So we'll be taking a look at a lot of that. He also was very much into home improvement. So we're going to do a little home improvement segment where I'm going to show you what it took to make a good living room, what it costs to make a good kitchen, and things like that. I'll also be looking at ship's logs from 3 different time periods, from about 1862 to 63. That's the height of the onion trade, and that was probably the height of Southport's wealth. And we'll talk about how important the globe onion was, because it was global in scope. It was being sold in Asia. As a matter of fact, in some of these logs, they are circumnavigating the Cape of Good Horn. They are going to Asia and bringing back products with immense amounts of in one sloop goes around to Peru, sells $1 million worth of merchandise, and then comes back with $600,000 worth of bat guano. So guano, it's fertilizer. It's bat. Okay. So we'll be looking at that and other things. We'll also be looking at the produce and prices of that time period. We're going to be taking a look at what happened in the onion blight, which was very sudden, and how that really led to prohibition and rum running. So what happened was the farmers converted almost instantly from growing onions to helping rum runners run booze. And by the way, this whole area, especially the Norwalk Islands, was one of the absolute epicenters of the prohibition trade. Connecticut and Rhode Island were the only 2 states that didn't pass prohibition at the state level. It was largely ignored, especially in the town of Westport. They had 4 policemen. None of them ever enforced. I'll be talking about a taxi that turned over on Main Street, and they had stuffed booze in every single compartment of the car, the fenders, the tires. And today, that single taxi would have been $275,000 worth of illegitimate booze. Wow. So it was a business. I'll be talking about Al Capone. Okay, and what he did. So really, one of the reasons I focused on, what's where we had the information, but 1742 is farming life in the 18th century. Then we're going to be talking more about daily life in the 19th century, and domestic life, death and disease, what people were eating, what people were drinking, and what, you hear this old saw that, oh my God, I think one of the things you're going to see is that they truly were just like us. Yeah. Truly were just like us. I mean, that just pops out of the page when you read this. And we're going to talk about the most famous railroad accident in American history up to that point that occurred right here. And is Sean here? Sean, tell them what we were talking about. How long it took in 1840 to go from Southport to New York, and how long it takes now to go from Southport to New York on the railroad.
No, just a little fun fact about technological advances. Today, from Southport to New York City, the train takes 1 hour and 20 minutes. But in 1840, the train took 1 hour and 20 minutes.
And on that vein, another thing I'll be doing is showing you the purchasing power of when they sold things, what they could buy for them. And that was very, very interesting to find out. So I guess this is a preview of a pitch toward July 7th. It'll be at 7 p.m. It should last, I mean, I think with everything included, probably about an hour. And I really do think you'll find it edifying. So what I would love you guys to do, if possible.
July 9th.
July 9th, sorry, yeah. What I hope you guys can do, because this is really, this is Jamie, this is your first exhibit, right?
Art of the book.
Art of the book was, okay, so this is your second. This is an exhibit that is stunning in its scope and execution, and I know that Jamie was giving credit. There's a lot of people who work, there's a lot of people who work here. When I went down in the basement, it's crawling with people and volunteers, and I've been very impressed with that. But this is such a good exhibit that what would be really nice is if you can come see this first, right? And then I'm not going to be just doing a PowerPoint presentation and discussion on what you see here. There'll be some of that, but it's complementary to that. So I hope you enjoy it. Just a quick note, because Mike's also an expert on this, and I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but it's just I'm learning. The Pequot War of 1637 is now being considered the starting point of the entire wars against the Native Americans in American history. It's now being included in all AP US history textbooks. It's now on the AP exam, and that story in and of itself is completely staggering. So you live in a very, very famous place, and I hope through the walking tours and the Fairfield Museum and what they're doing here, it's clear that you're interested in this, but it's spectacular. And it's like an onion, and that the more you peel of this area's history, the more you cry with joy. But also it just leads to another layer. It just leads to another layer. So thank you. Appreciate it. Yep. That's exactly. Nice to meet you.